Hi, let's review some evolution with my friend, the blue-footed booby. First, understand that evolution is the process by which the frequency of inheritable traits in a population changes from one generation to the next. An early advocate for evolution was Lamarck. His theory included use and disuse, which described how body parts of organisms can develop with usage, while unused parts weaken. The inheritance of acquired characteristics said that body features acquired during the lifetime of an organism could be passed to offspring, but his theory was incorrect. 50 years later came Charles Darwin, who published The Origin of Species. He said that natural selection or survival of the fittest was the driving force of evolution. Evidence for evolution includes paleontology, which looks at fossils. Biogeography uses geography to describe species distribution. Embryology reveals similar development stages among species. Comparative anatomy has two structures: homologous structures that are body parts that resemble one another in different species because they have evolved from a common ancestor, and analogous structures are similar body parts because the species have evolved independently as adaptations to their environment. Molecular biology looks at the species' DNA sequences. Natural selection is when some species possess alleles that generate traits that enable them to cope more successfully in their environment than other individuals. We can assume that the blue-footed booby is this color because it helps them hide from their predators, or maybe that their beaks are this shape because of the kind of fish they eat. Stabilizing selection eliminates individuals that have an extreme or unusual traits. Directional favors traditions that are at one extreme of a range of traits. Disruptive occurs when the environment favors extreme or unusual traits while selecting against the common traits. Sexual selection is the differential mating of males in a population. There can be male competition, or like the blue-footed booby, the female can choose the male with the best blue feet. Artificial selection is carried out by humans and their actions. Sources of variation include mutations and sexual reproduction, which creates new genetic recombinations during the sexual reproductive process. Outbreeding mixes different alleles. There are other factors other than natural selection that can change allele frequencies and cause evolution. Mutations, gene flow, which comes from emigration or immigration, genetic drift, which includes the founder effect and the bottleneck effect. Example of the founder effect is, let's say some blue boobies get separated from their population. Their population may evolve differently than the other population. A bottleneck occurs when the population undergoes a dramatic decrease in size, maybe because of a natural catastrophe or disease. Non-random mating is when individuals choose mates based upon their particular traits. Maybe a booby will choose a booby mate with the mutated greenish-blue feet. Genetic equilibrium is when there is no evolution and allele frequencies in a population remain constant. All of these conditions hold, and these are some of the important values and equations used to determine genetic equilibrium. Speciation is the formation of new species by either allopatric speciation, when a population is divided by a geographic barrier, or sympatric speciation, when a new species can arise because of balanced polymorphism, polyploidy, or hybridization. Adaptive radiation is evolution of many species from a single ancestor. There are two isolating mechanisms. Prezygotic isolating mechanisms prevent the fertilization, and postzygotic isolating mechanisms prevent the formation of fertile progeny. Divergent evolution describes two species that originate from a common ancestor and become different over time. Convergent evolution describes two unrelated species with similar traits. In coevolution, one species responds to a new adaptation that appears in another species. Microevolution describes the details of how populations of organisms change from generation to generation and how new species originate. Macroevolution describes general patterns of changes in groups of related species that have occurred over time. Phyletic gradualism has gradual small changes through evolution, and punctuated equilibrium has long periods of little evolution and then short periods of evolution. The origin of life. Chemical evolution is the study of how life began. The Earth formed about 4.6 billion years ago. Organic molecules were formed by energy from inorganic molecules. The earliest fossils date to 4.5 billion years ago. The endosymbiotic theory describes how eukaryotic cells originated. And that's all, folks.